What's up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to DCS World and welcome back to my A-10C tutorial series. The time is finally upon us. We're about ready to start dropping some bombs. Now, before we actually drop any bombs, I want to briefly go over some of the different ways that we actually can drop bombs in the A-10. We have two main modes. We have CCIP, which stands for Continuously Computed Impact Point. We also have CCRP, which stands for Continuously Computed Release Point. What these mean, real basically, CCIP, in very layman's terms, means dive bomb. We're going to dive on the target. We're going to have a targeting reticle come up on our HUD that we want to place on the target, and then we're going to release the bombs, and so long as we have a pretty good attack profile and a steep enough dive angle, it should be pretty accurate. With CCRP, we will generally be flying in a straight and level approach, and the computer is going to decide when to release the bombs so that they impact the target. One major thing to consider is that CCIP bombing is generally going to be more accurate than CCRP bombing, and that's just because of the nature of it. With CCIP and the dive bomb, we're putting a lot of speed into the bomb. It's not going to have a chance to deviate from its target, and it's generally what a lot of pilots will use if they need to get bombs on a target point, especially unguided bombs, with some degree of accuracy. CCRP mode, by contrast, lends itself more to guided munitions, which we will explore a little bit later. But I'll demonstrate both CCIP and CCRP here today for us. So you may have seen on screens flash a couple of diagrams just showing what the different modes look like. So take a look at those. I will link to a diagram, as well as, again, Chuck's guide has all of this stuff. I'm also going to continue to link to that in the video description. So, as for dropping the bombs themselves, well, on our airplane right now, if we look over at our DSMS, which I have set up on the left side MFD, I'm not going to keep it zoomed in for now, we have 6 Mark 82 500-pound bombs. These are unguided, general-purpose bombs. They don't do anything except fall and go kaboom. Real simple, right? We have them on triple ejector racks, which means I've got 6 of them with 3 per pylon, so I've got them, in fact, I'll zoom in. I've got them on pylons 4 and pylons 8. You can see them there, Mark 82, and then TER stands for triple ejector rack. So we have to do a little bit of setup here. So first, we need to go to our armaments panel right below the left side MFD. Our master arm switch, we need to flip that up to the arm position. So now our master arm is on. We can now drop the bombs. A few more things we want to take a look at. If you remember from my DSMS video, we can set up profiles for these weapons, and unguided munitions are no exception. So I'm actually going to just pause the camera there. Let's click on profile. Ignore these, I had other weapons on here. We're going to select the Mark 82 profile and just take a look at it, so view profile. And we've got a couple of things we can set up here. So, first one, and most importantly, we have the main mode we're going to drop these in. I mentioned we're going to drop in CCIP first, so here is where we'd select that. It's CCIP by default, but we can also switch it to CCRP if we want, but we'll just leave that as CCIP. We have an option over here, SGL. This stands for single. We can set up a release profile so that our airplane will drop bombs either one by one as singles. We can drop in pairs. So if I click this, it'll switch to PRS. That stands for pairs, so it'll drop 2 bombs at a time. We can drop in what's called a ripple. So ripple single, meaning it's going to drop 1 bomb at a time over and over again for as long as we hold the release button or our release quantity here. And we can set a ripple quantity, so if we were to do a ripple, we're actually going to do a pairs drop today, but if we were to do a ripple, we would set the ripple quantity. So if we wanted to drop 4 bombs, we would use our UFC up here and enter the quantity of 4. And then for 1 press and hold of the weapon release button, it would drop 4 bombs, 1, 2, 3, 4, in that sort of fashion. Think of it as you're doing a little bit of mini carpet bombing when you do a bomb ripple. We can also ripple in pairs, so it can drop 2 bombs at a time and then another 2 bombs in quick succession. So if we wanted to do ripple pairs and we wanted to drop 8 bombs total, let's say we had 8 bombs and we wanted to drop ripple pairs, we would do ripple quantity 4, and that would drop 2 bombs per ripple. We can also set the distance between the bomb impacts that we want to do. Here, it's in feet. The default is 75, and that's how we would set up ripples and pairs. We're going to set it to pairs today because pairs bombing is usually pretty good with Mark 82 bombs. They're fairly small bombs, only 500 pounds, so a little bit more ordnance on target is never a bad thing. We also have the letters N and T here. What do those mean? Well, bombs have fuses. Just like if you light a firecracker off in your backyard, it's got a fuse that you have to light. Bombs also have fuses. Now, these are generally mechanical fuses on the nose of the bomb. And in fact, let me go to an external view here. Take a look at my airplane. You can see the bombs on the racks on my airplane. You see these little nipple-looking things on the front of the bomb? Those are the crush fuses. Those are called the nose fuses. So in the case of the Mark 82, it only has a nose fuse. Now, some bombs can have what are called tail fuses. In the case of the high drag Mark 82 air bombs, which we will cover in the next video. And in order to actually activate these fuses, we need to enable them from this screen. Now, because these bombs don't have a tail fuse, the T here doesn't matter. If we click this, however, we can change it to just the nose fuse, just the tail fuse, or nose and tail fuse together. In the case of the Mark 82s, as I said, they don't have a tail fuse, so you can either set it to nose or just leave it at nose and tail, N/T, and the bombs will work just fine. We're going to leave it as nose/tail for now. And just out of interest, we can check the advanced settings page, and we can look at a few things. We can set desired times of fall, which we're not going to do. We can set a minimum altitude to where if we get too low, the bombs won't actually release. I can talk about that. And then we have what's called SEM. This is Safe Escape Maneuver, and CLM means climb. So that basically means when you dive on the target, and then after you drop the bombs, what do you do after that? In some cases, you might turn away without climbing, or in this case, you might pull up and then climb away. So we're going to leave the Safe Escape Maneuver set to CLM for climb. And we don't have to touch anything else. There's some adjustment settings you can do here, but they're not really all that important. So let's click Return. Make sure all of this is good. We would nose, tail, pairs. Mode is CCIP. Let's click on Save. And then we can go back to the main status page, and we are good to go. Let me unpause my camera. There we go. Now, we need to actually select the weapons to drop. So the way we do that is we make our HUD the sensor of interest. We know it's sensor of interest because we have the little star with coolie hat up. Short command, coolie hat short up. And then we're going to use DMS, left and right, short command to select the weapon. So we can go left or right here. And if you look at the DSMS again, the 2 stations with Mark 82 bombs on them are now highlighted in green. So those are our selected weapons. And with our Master R on, we can use our weapon release button, which I hope you have either bound to your joystick or I believe it's the space bar by default on the keyboard, to drop the bombs. Now, we need a target. So in this case, we're not actually going to use any of our targeting sensors. We're just going to find these targets by eye. I'm right here orbiting around my favorite little targeting range on the Persian Gulf at the Palms here, just because I think that's pretty fun. And we're going to acquire the targets visually. I also have dot labels on to make it a little bit easier. So what we want to do is we want to position ourselves at a point where we can roll onto the target and get ourselves into a dive angle of about 35 to 40 degrees. 40 degrees seems to be the sweet spot in this airplane. And we're going to see some symbology pop up on the HUD. You're going to see a pipper pop up onto the HUD. That's going to indicate the impact point of your bomb. You want to get that pipper on the target, and when it's over the target, you're going to press and hold the weapon release button to drop the bomb. Also, one thing I should mention is our HUD is currently in nav mode. We need to use our HOTAS master mode button to switch to CCIP mode. So if I click guns, we don't want guns right now. That'll come later. If we click again, CCIP shows up on the HUD. And when we actually dive on the target, we'll have some symbology. Now, when you actually initiate your dive, things are going to happen very quickly. You're going to pick up speed. You're going to want to deploy your air brakes to keep your speed under control. You're going to want to pull your throttles back to idle. And you're going to want to stay as coordinated as possible in the dive to make the bombs as accurate as possible. So let's see if we can do that. The best way I've found to do it is to start from an altitude of about 12,000 feet or higher. I'm here orbiting the target area at about a little over 13,000 feet. So let's see what we can do. So I'm going to go autopilot off. I'm going to turn towards the target here. And in fact, let me actually get a little bit of separation from the target area so we can do a proper run-in. You can actually see the dashed line popping around the HUD there. That indicates that the bomb falls, the bomb pipper is actually below the level of my HUD, so it's way down. It'll show up when we actually enter into the dive. Alright, so we got a little bit of separation. We're turning towards the target now. We're going to want to put the target off to the left or the right of our nose here. So I'm going to roll out. I'm not pointing straight at the target. In fact, I'm going to correct back to the right a little bit here. And what I'm actually going to look for, in fact, let me pause just briefly. What I actually want to look for is the target to sort of come into my view right here, right behind my canopy frame here. It's going to be off to my left and down low. And then I'm going to turn and roll into it as well as roll into a dive. It'll make sense when I actually do it. And again, everything I'm about to do is going to happen very, very fast. And when you actually do this yourself, it's going to take quite a bit of practice to get it right. So bear with me and just make sure you practice this when you can. So let's unpause and actually do our bombing run. I'm going to go for one of the targets on the branches of the palm there. We'll go for one in the middle. Just keep her straight and level for now. Keep the throttles at about 75%. Alright, the target is coming into view there. I'm going to go for, pause real quick. We're going to go for that little guy right there. He's coming into view. I want to get just a little bit closer to him. Turn. And we're going to enter into the dive. So we're going to roll in. We're rolling in towards the target. As I roll towards the target and level out, there's a dive angle of about 35 degrees, which is okay. Our speed is increasing. And you can see the bomb pipper is actually coming into view now. So we're going to start pulling up, and bombs away. Throttles to full, air brakes closed. We pull up and then roll to watch the bomb hit. Boom. I actually fell a little bit short there. It's tough if you don't practice. I haven't practiced CCIP bombing too much lately. But You can see the point. We dove on the target, released the bombs as our reticle passed over the target, and then pulled up safely to get away from the bomb's impact. Something you might notice already, one of the inherent problems with CCIP bombing is because you're diving on the target, it effectively puts you, it can put you in range of enemy fire, and you do have to be careful of that. That's why CCRP bombing was actually invented. CCRP is safer for the pilot than CCIP, but CCIP can be more accurate. Let's do another attack run here. I'm just going to turn around. Try to get a little bit of altitude here. I said 12,000 feet, but I'm going to stick to about 10 just because save some time. And I'm still climbing anyway as we're turning, so that's fine. And if you notice, quick pause. Since we set this up to drop in pairs, I had 3 bombs on each of these stations here, but now I only have 2, so it dropped 1 bomb each from each of the racks. So there was our pair drop. Okay. Let's do it again. And once again, we're going to get that target somewhere in our canopy poe there. Watching them, watching them, watching them. Let's turn in. We're going to go for this one on the end here. Roll over, level out. Speed's increasing. There's our bomb pipper. Air brakes out a little bit. And bombs away. Air brakes closed, throttle to full. Pull up above 3,000 feet thereabouts. And kaboom. So that's the basics of CCIP bombing in the Warthog. Now we're going to come around and talk about CCRP bombing. Alright, so we're at about 7,000 feet here orbiting. We're still by our range. We want to do a CCRP drop. Now how do we do that? We first need to go into our DSMS profile again. So we're going to, let me just pause the camera, click on profile, make sure Mark 82 is selected, click on view profile, and then simply change CCIP to CCRP, and then save the profile back to status. We have 2 bombs left exactly, so this will be perfect. Pause my camera, look forward ahead. We also want to change our bombing master mode, or our HUD master mode rather, to CCRP, and I think it did it for me automatically when I changed the weapon profile. Nav, guns, CCIP, CCRP. Now our symbology here is a little bit different. You notice we have that circular pipper is now just in the center of our HUD. Because we're not actually going to dive on the target, it doesn't need to be below us and it doesn't need to be telling us where the bomb's going to impact. Instead, we're going to get a cue that's going to tell us when the bombs are going to release. Now, in order to actually do this, we need to set up a SPI. So if you remember from my video on SOI and SPI, SPI is a target point in space that's going to pass data on to our nav system and our weapons. So for any CCRP drop, you need a sensor point of interest or a SPI. Best way I like to create a SPI is using the targeting pod. So if you remember from our video on the targeting pod, we're going to use the targeting pod to create a SPI. And my targeting pod is slightly occluded because I'm not very high right now, but that's going to be fine. Alright. Let's zoom in on these targets here. Let me get it in FLIR mode with the boat switch. And let's say I want to kill that vehicle in particular. Okay? I'm going to create a SPI on his head. The way we create a SPI with any of our sensors is we press and hold TMS forward. So it's a TMS forward long command. that creates a SPI. We know we have the SPI set by the targeting pod because of the letters TGP in the lower part of our HUD. So we have a SPI set up. Let's get a little bit of distance now. We're at 7,000 feet. This will be fine. And you're going to see some new symbology pop up as we turn towards the target. So let's turn in. You're already seeing some new symbology there. But there's one more piece that I'd like to point out. There it is. And pause real quick. Okay, so we've got a little bit more symbology to talk about here. We have our reticle. We have a line jutting out from the top of our reticle. This is called the P-bill, or Projected Bomb Impact Line. This line, we need to line up with this line. This line is called the ASL, or Azimuth Steering Line. This is the line telling us where we need to actually point the nose of our aircraft to get the bombs on target. And it's a little hard to see, but you can actually see where our SPI is by this little tadpole guy right here, kind of obscured by some of the HUD text. Not a big deal. We also have, up top here, a little circle. This is called the solution queue. When we are approaching the target and as we get close to the computed release point, remember, continuously computed release point, the computer is figuring out when we're actually going to drop the bomb. This is going to get a little timer next to it, counting down in seconds. And then this ball, this cue right here, this little ball is going to fall down the line. Think like the ball falling down in New York City on New Year's Eve. It's going to fall down the line and it's going to pass through this reticle. When it passes through this reticle, we need to be holding our weapon release button. In fact, we're going to press and hold the weapon release button at about 10 seconds remaining here. So just as it starts to fall, we're going to press and hold weapon release button, and we're not going to let go of the weapon release button until the bombs have come off the racks. The bombs will come off the racks automatically and fall towards the target. So let's see that in action here. Again, with any bombing run or any attack run, things happen very fast, so make sure you're paying attention. And unpause. CCRP bombing, also has a little bit of finesse involved because it is less accurate, and to get it accurate, you have to be very close. So I'm trying to line these two lines up as best I can. It can be a little bit finicky. All right, so we've got a timer there, a little hard to see, but 15 seconds left. At 10 seconds, I'm going to press and hold weapon release. Holding weapon release now. The lines are pretty well lined up. Little corrections. You see the ball falling and bombs away. Let's see what those do. So you notice the bombs fell while we were in level flight rather than a dive. Boom. Actually, that wasn't too bad. Those hit pretty well where I aimed them. Now again, keep in mind that because you're not diving on the target and you're not putting a lot of downward speed into the bomb, CCRP bombing can be less accurate than CCIP bombing. But it can also be pretty accurate, and it can be accurate enough depending on the sort of attack you need to do or what sort of target you have. And also, as I mentioned before, CCRP bombing is the primary release method for precision guided munitions, which we will cover much later. Anyway, I hope that was a good intro to bombing in the A-10. We're going to get into more of the weapons as we go and some more advanced functions, and it's going to be a lot of fun. We're going to blow up a lot of stuff, and who doesn't love blowing up a lot of stuff? Anyway, until then, folks, I will see you guys later. Take care.